Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy YouTube channel. This is Aaron Percival, aka Corporal Hicks.
This is Adam Zeller, aka Ridgetop.
And this is AJ Bischoff, aka Voodoo Magic.
And welcome back to another motion tracker video talking about some of the latest news in the Alien and Predator worlds.
A depressing motion tracker video.
This one's a bummer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Kind of something that was preempted a little bit ago, though. Because was it Bloody Disgusting did a piece about here's all the stuff that's ending soon and we'll probably face this copyright.
Yeah, we had a big fear that this was going to come. I think the last big one was Terminator, where those rights rang up because that film was 1984.
Just reverted back to James Cameron, right? I don't think they even tried to fight it.
No, they didn't try to fight it.
Skydance had it, didn't it?
Yep. And James Cameron...
They're mates with him, aren't they? So...
Yeah, David Ellison, the owner of Skydance, he's friends with James Cameron. And they went ahead and worked out a deal, in which case it would be exclusively licensed to Skydance. But of course, James Cameron is now the copyright owner. So they conceded. They didn't take that to court.
Which would be the best option for us, I suppose, as well. But anyway, what we're talking about is the fact that Jim and John Thomas, the original writers of Predator, or Hunter at that point, are now suing Disney to try and reclaim ownership of Predator.
Yeah.
So, AJ making his debut motion tracker debut.
Happy to be here, guys. I just wish it was for a better story.
The crappy topic that is this. So, AJ, as the writer of the articles as well, do you want to start walking us through what the hell is happening?
Sure. So I'll just read it right from the headline. Creators Jim and John Thomas sue Disney to reclaim Predator rights. You lose it here, you're in a world of hurt. This line, spoken by Blaine, played by the charismatic actor Jesse Ventura in the 1987 classic film Predator, may never be more appropriate than it is today regarding the Predator franchise. So much is going on with Predator right now. The fifth film in the movie franchise, titled Skulls, is slated to go into production this June. The first Predator ongoing Marvel Comics series in history is slated to begin this November. And within a couple weeks, a large anniversary update is expected for the upcoming Predator Hunting Grounds video game. And this can all come to a screeching halt with one swing of a judge's gavel, with the news of original Predator creators James E. Thomas and John C. Thomas suing Disney to reclaim the rights to the otherworldly hunter that became famous back in the summer of 1987. First reported by The Hollywood Reporter, the Thomas brothers are seeking to reclaim Predator under copyright law's termination provision, which permits creators to regain ownership of properties that they have created after 35 years. And the Thomas brothers' legal counsel is claiming the effective termination date for Disney's rights over the property is this past Saturday, April 17th. And they're suing to stop everything Disney has in the works. Now, the Thomas brothers are legally represented by Mark Toberoff, who is known for representing the original Friday the 13th creator, Victor Miller, in a similar case that has sadly tied up the franchise in legal red tape for years, paralyzing content for fans, and is a case that is currently under appeal. Disney, on the other hand, is represented by their own superstar legal eagle, Daniel Petricoli, who fought for the rights of Superman years ago for Warner Brothers. Both lawyers have won various copyright battles, but in the meantime, will the Predator fans lose? Only time will tell.
So the real worry here is that this is going to become a Friday the 13th situation.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's a worst case scenario, but I honestly don't think it's a likely scenario, personally.
Well, this one hurts my soul, man. It just hurts my soul because this case potentially can bring Predator fans to their knees, begging for content for years if the judge presiding on this case issues a preliminary injunction on all new Predator works. Because that's what's in the legal complaint here, guys, filed by the Thomas brothers. They said they're entitled.
They want to halt everything that's moving forward. First of all, we need to make the disclaimer, like, we are fans. We are not lawyers. We are not legal experts. So we may be getting some things wrong here when we talk about this. But yeah, we just look at what's happened with the Friday the 13th situation. We get real nervous, especially with Ilphonic and Hunting Grounds. It's just insane that they have to deal with this again after the fact that they were stopped from bringing new content to Friday the 13th. And I really, really hope this doesn't happen here, because that would be a real shame for Hunting Grounds. But let's get into this a bit more. Voodoo, you wrote another piece kind of going over like FAQs on this, right? Like what this could mean, what this could not mean.
Yeah, and there's a lot of legal jargon in there, and I just don't necessarily want to bore our readers with all of that legalese. But let me get to that page here, and we'll sit there and just go over the bullet points of what the Thomas brothers are seeking here. So this was our second article called Jim and John Thomas versus Disney, examining the battle for Predator. And essentially, we just tried to scrutinize this legal claim and that's been filed in court, and find out exactly what the Thomas brothers are pursuing and what they would gain. And what they're pursuing here is they're pursuing in the recapturing of copyright ownership of Predator permitted by United States law, which means this action, if successful, only applies to the U.S. copyright of Predator.
Disney would still hold the international rights, yeah.
Correct. But apparently, though, if Disney was creating a theme park, say in Japan, and they own the international rights, they would still require some sort of license payment to the Thomas brothers for these new projects. Now, if the Thomas brothers do reclaim the copyright to Predator, people were asking in our forums, if they're going to gain control of previous Predator films and works. And the answer, according to the legal complaint, is no. The Thomas brothers, if they recapture the U.S. copyright, they will only have 100% rights of future Predator productions in the United States. All the pre-existing Predator works, including the 1987 original classic film, will still belong to the current copyright holder, which is Disney. And it was funny, I had mentioned this in the article, and it's still worthy even to note here, is that they considered Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem as Predator sequels. Now, if this legal claim filed on behalf of the Thomas brothers occurs, when is the transfer date? The transfer of copyright ownership between Disney back to the Thomas brothers, where Thomas brothers are pretty much indicating when the termination date should begin or should end, and when their copyright ownership should begin. The Thomas brothers have claimed it's the 17th of April, 2021, and that was yesterday, prior to us recording this. However, though, Disney appears to be challenging the validity of this date of April 17th, that the Thomas brothers are claiming to be valid. And it appears that as Disney is challenging this, the Thomas brothers are even conceding that their date may not hold up in court in their complaint. So they included alternative dates in their lawsuits, and those alternative dates are either June 14th, 2022, or January 13th, 2023, respectively. So, depending on how a judge rules, this whole ordeal that we're talking about may be pushed out until June 2022 or January 2023. And then Disney will proceed as normal with their current Predator projects until said time, and then probably file another lawsuit and fight it a different way. So, that's going to be the first determination here, is when is the actual correct date, that if the Thomas brothers are correct in claiming the copyright back, when should it be effective? And then finally, or actually maybe a couple more here, we were also wanted to answer the question, are the Thomas brothers trying to stop the new Disney era Predator film Skulls from going into production? And the answer is yes, it would seem so. The legal representation for the Thomas brothers indicate they are entitled to have the court issue a preliminary injunction on new Predator works, which is a temporary court order that would prevent Disney from continuing new Predator works until the conclusion of the trial, which actually could be years. And that's the big scary thing. And then finally, if the Thomas brothers successfully reclaim the Predator copyright back, can they license it back to Disney if they choose to, if they agree on the terms? And yes, they absolutely can license Predator back to Disney, but they're not required to. They were required to during the notification date and the termination date. But according to the Thomas brothers lawsuit, that termination date has passed. And they're saying that termination date was yesterday. So we have a lot of moving parts here and a lot of big things that can be impacted by this lawsuit.
Wait, so you're saying the whole Disney exclusive having the opportunity to negotiate, like having first negotiation rights with them, they're arguing that that is not valid anymore.
Right, because apparently you can start that negotiation the moment Disney is served notice up until the termination date. You know, we had talked about James Cameron in the beginning of this podcast, and he, after notification that he was going to claim the copyright back of Terminator, he negotiated with David Ellison, the president of Skydance, on a new contract, and this was prior to the termination date. And if you do that prior to the termination date, even if there's another studio out there that wants your property, they are not allowed to get into a bidding war or even contact the new copyright owner. But that termination date has passed, according to the Thomas brothers, per this legal complaint.
Okay, so how are we feeling?
Nervous?
Feeling horrible.
Nah, I'm not feeling horrible. I'm feeling nervous. But I think there is a distinction to be made here between this and the Friday the 13th situation. The Friday the 13th rights were owned by a smaller horror-based production company. I mean, Disney has changed copyright law in the past. They have changed when things enter into the public domain and additional exceptions to that. Like, I've had a family member that has worked in their legal team before, and Disney has a very high amount of resources when it comes to legal defense. And this could change the industry, whatever outcome this is. There was a video, I believe it was you posted this, Aaron, by John Campia on YouTube, his YouTube channel, where he went through this, and we'll include the link for that in the description. It was a good little video, and he was saying this probably just comes down to money. You know, they want it to go in a certain way. Like, Disney will probably win this, but they want it to go in a certain way where Disney has to settle and go like, hey, here's $20 million. Just go away and don't talk about this again. And I'm seeing some, let me finish real quick. I'm seeing some criticism like, oh yeah, we hope they get it back. Like, screw Disney. This will save it from all the woke crap. And I'm like, you don't get it. Like, if this goes into that degree of a legal battle, we might not see Predator content for years and years. And AVP might be a thing of the past entirely. So Disney will maintain the current rights of the Predator films, and it would just create a giant mess if those rights went to another studio. So I do hope, typically I'm not rooting for the big corporation, but in this case, I do hope Disney has a pretty quick and decisive victory in this. And I think the main thing too is, they're in pre-production for Skulls, and these are creative jobs in the industry right now that are being threatened because of this. This is the second time Elphonic has had this looming over them. And now, do I think that a judge will halt all production? No. Again, Disney has very powerful lawyers. Disney will find a way to move forward with what's going on right now while this legal battle takes place. If it takes place, again, they could just be looking for a payout or a settlement. I don't see the Thomas brothers winning this. I just don't.
While I like John's videos, unfortunately, I just don't see his argument holding water because he was actually surprised. This was the first time he had ever seen this happen, according to him in that video. And he said all of Hollywood is going to be paying attention to this because this will be, this will be monumental regarding the decision, and say, hey, guess what, John, this already happened with Superman and Warner Brothers won. And this also already happened with Friday the 13th. And guess what? The creator won.
Well, he kind of won. The rights for that were split because the studio still owns the adult Jason character, the hockey mask Jason, where the writer has the rights to the original screenplay story. Yeah.
But that was always understood by the writer, and they want, now that case is under appeal, but that lawyer, the same lawyer that's representing the Thomas brothers, he won that case. Now we'll see how the appeal turns out, but I don't think this is just going to go away with a payout, because this law, which is not 100 years old, was established to protect these guys who write these spec scripts that a lot of times are deserving of the copyright. And let me back up a step here, because I'll get into that in a second. But regarding the Thomas brothers deserving the copyright, I honestly have mixed feelings about, and hear me out. And I adore the Thomas brothers. I adore them next to Stephen Hopkins. There is nobody I rather have a conversation with. And I get the law. And the law is, if you write a spec script, you don't know what it's going to be worth at the time of selling it.
Just to clarify real quick, a spec script is where you come up with an idea, you sell it to the studio. The studio did not hire you to write something. You sold your idea to the studio.
Right. It's an original idea. And you write a spec script, and when you write it, you have a predator you may have a predator on your hands, or you may have a pumpkin head on your hands, another Stan Winston film. And you don't know which film necessarily is going to turn into an endearing franchise, and which film is just going to be a one and done. The compensation is fair when it's a one and done. But if this thing turns, 35, 36, 37 years later, this thing is still going strong and just raking over millions and millions of dollars, you can understand that what the Thomas brothers negotiated back in, I think, 84 or 85, when they sold that script, if they had a time machine and if they could travel into the future, they would have sold it for a lot more money. So I understand the law behind it, but in regards to the Thomas brothers, and it'll be interesting what you guys think about this. Do they deserve all the credit? And what I mean is, they were one Boss Film Studios mistake away from being a one and done. And if it wasn't for John McTiernan bringing in the Maasai warrior painting for inspiration after he shut down production, or Stan Winston's craftsmanship, the score of Alan Silvestri, like Aliens, so much talent made Predator what it is today. And to be honest, I wish, or would be 100% on board with, if the copyright was somehow split among all of them. I mean, I'd be on board with that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. Like this is a quirk in U.S. copyright law, but when it comes down to it, the whole idea of, hey, if someone creates something and sells the copyright and it becomes this big thing, are they not entitled to some of those rewards? And I think an argument could be made that yes, they are. So that's why I think this should be more of like a royalties thing. Like they can argue they're entitled to a certain amount of royalties, but it just gets too messy and too ugly when you get into legal battles over copyright ownership at this point. So if they want to settle, or like the main thing that rubs me the wrong way here is they are trying to stop everything in production. And there's a lot happening in production with Predator beyond just the film right now. And so as a fan, as a Predator fan first, I'm like, come on, guys, stop it. Like that just angers me, regardless of whether or not that they are entitled to more compensation for their creation becoming what it has. So I would be much more like on their side if they were allowing everything that's currently in production to move forward while they argue this case. But by them trying to stop everything, then again, I don't know how this all works, because the fans got really upset at Victor Miller for Friday the 13th, and he essentially came forward and said, like, hey, I want what you want. I don't want all these things to be halted. This is just the process. So I don't know if that's just how it is with these things, or if they are actively like they want to stop this, or if that's just how these cases have to be. But yeah, you bring up an interesting point, Voodoo, in terms of like they sold the script as hunters. It was not Predator. It was changed to Predator. The design of the creature was entirely different. That was a work for hire by Stan Winston. So the character we know it as was created by Stan Winston by hire for Fox. Not to mention, an interesting thing I noticed, they recently revealed a work in progress cover for the upcoming AVP anthology, and it said Aliens versus Predators with an S. So that makes me wonder, okay, what about the copyright for the third film? Because that's an entirely different trademark just because of the S with Predators. Could that be related to that? If they take Predator, Disney could still say, well, we own Predators with an S. So.
I think they'd lose in court. I mean, they wouldn't have rights to Predators. Sony would maintain the copyright
Disney.
Disney would maintain the copyrights to all those 5 films, but I don't think they would be able to get away with that in court. But you're right. Yeah. So this all goes to the Thomas brothers here, and I'm not sure if it should. I mean, do they deserve a bigger payday considering what Predator became? Oh yeah. But complete ownership, I'm mixed on. And I understand the law, but I'm still mixed. And this is not a James Cameron Terminator situation where James Cameron wrote it, directed it, designed the Terminator, designed the Skynet vehicles, did all the concept art and storyboards. This is not that. Yeah. You know, and I wish there was no preliminary. And I should let Aaron get in here. I'll say real quick. I wish there was no preliminary injunction that would be allowed when all Predator projects.
Yeah, because that's unfair to the creatives who have projects coming up, and those projects are canceled and they have to find other work. That's just unfair to those people. So that should not be a thing.
So what do you think, Aaron?
I think that's the biggest sort of worry at the minute, is because this isn't the 10-year lull between Predator 2, well, longer than 10 years, 20-year lull between Predator 2 and Predators, the 10 years between, nearly 10 years between Predators and the Predator. You know, we have got a film in development. We know we have.
In pre-production.
We have a game that we are expecting a nice chunky update to celebrate the first anniversary of the game's release. And we also know there's stuff there that's not been announced yet. There is other stuff in the works. And, you know, my instinct is, yes, Jim and John, it originated this. It's like you say, AJ, they are not the sole reason for its success. You know, this is like the Prometheus gut punch, where people realize that Alien's success is not solely on Ridley Scott. And then, you know, so on that vein, yeah, I do agree that they should be entitled to a bigger cut than perhaps what they're on now, because it all started with them. But this isn't solely their success. And I can't help but feel so bad for the creatives working now. How much is it going to suck for Dan when everything grinds to a halt? And he's been working on this for years himself. And Ilphonic, good God, those guys must feel cursed with everything that's happened to them. And then, of course, as a fan, I'm going to be bummed as hell because, Predator isn't Alien. It doesn't get the stream of content that Alien does. So that feels like a bigger, twist of the knife in the side kind of thing when it comes to it, because I don't want to be stuck waiting. How long's Friday been in contest? Like
5 years at least. And fans have been frustrated to no end with that franchise. And the rights are still very messy with that because, again, the studio owns one, and the writer of the original screenplay owns the other. And he's been saying, though, like, hey, come to me and we'll talk. Like, so he's saying, like, I'm not trying to stop. Victor Miller is saying, I'm not trying to stop everything here. I just want what's entitled to me. And I'm saying, if the studio wants to do something, come to me and we'll talk. So, I'm not very familiar with that case. I want to do a bit more research with what has happened with Friday the 13th in terms of that big lawsuit. But what I know is the dynamics are different because it's Disney. And again, Disney has changed copyright law. So they have shown already by how fast they were in terms of filing a countersuit here that they are serious about protecting this IP.
But when you say how fast, you've got to, apparently this was, so 2016. So Fox were aware of it. So Disney surely should have been aware of it. And then what did they renewed? They dropped another notice in like, oh, don't forget that this is happening at the start of the year. So potentially there was 4 months at least with Disney knowing about it.
I just mean how fast they countersued after the brothers sued, because maybe they were just hoping the brothers would not want to sue Disney.
Well, I really want this to work out for everybody. I would quite. I'm in the camp of, let's hope Disney offers them a couple of mil under the table, and they'll sort of, because it's not like Jim and John really work at the minute from the looks of it. Just a quick flick on their IMDb's, mostly character created by credits in relation to various Predator projects, and a fuck ton of fan films for some reason on IMDb. So they never really went on to do much from what I understand. So it's like,
yeah, they could. It could just be about ownership. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know what their motivation is. Obviously, there's got to be some compensation for it. But they could develop. They could institute a company. It's like Conan the Barbarian. I think they have a company called Conan Properties or something like that, where the company itself would run the licensing, but the Thomas family would own it. They don't necessarily have to work every day. But that could be their plan here. But I just wish they weren't, at least according to the legal claim, asking for this to go full stop until this is resolved. And at least that's what they say they're quote unquote entitled to. And that would not just only mean Skulls going stopped. It'd be the Predator ongoing comic series that we're expecting in November stopped. This would mean Predator Hunting Ground, like we said, video game, maybe future updates stopped. All of it, and a U.S. judge would have the power to do that. Now, will they? I don't know, but they have the power to. So it's a scary, uncertain future for Predator at the moment. It really is.
Yeah. And that, let's be honest, we're mostly coming at it from a fan point of view. So it's that potential freeze that I think is really what we're all mostly worried about. We don't want to not have stuff coming out, at the end of the day. Again, I hope it works out for everybody, but that everybody includes us. The people that also make these properties a success. We're the ones out there buying the stuff. So, treat us good too at the end of it.
You know what? It reminds me of, if this goes this way, say there is a full stop. I mean, a few years ago, I went to Universal Studios in Orlando, and I went to the Marvel Islands of Adventure. Now, and I was talking to one of the workers there. Now, when Marvel sold the rights to Captain America, Spider-Man, and they're able to build this island and all these rides. There was these initial rides, and then they had this future where they were going to expand to more character rides. And then what happens? Disney buys Marvel and puts a full stop. And now there is no future character rides that they could build. They can't build anything. They can only update their current rides.
They rebuilt the Hulk coaster. They rebuilt the entire track, and it looks much better.
And they made the Spider-Man high definition. But my point is the fans lose because Disney bought and the Marvel property, and they have competing Disney parks also in Orlando, Florida. They put a full stop and hope eventually that Universal will get rid of that island. The rides will become outdated and tired and eventually replace it. And then Disney will be able to, construct their own Marvel theme park. But what is that going to be? 10 years, 20 years? So the fans lose in these cases.
Universal got a really good deal, and Disney's still finding ways around that. Like they're just about to open the Avengers campus in June at Disney's California Adventure Park. In terms of their Florida park, they're working on a Guardians of the Galaxy ride because that doesn't fall into the purview of the copyright that Universal secured with Marvel Superhero Island.
Right, but they can't build any superheroes in Orlando.
Can't. But the thing about the Orlando Marvel Superhero Island at Universal is it's very interesting because it's all the comic book stuff before the Marvel movies got big. So it's very much the old Marvel vibe, and it's really cool for that aspect. Now, I'm sure it's very frustrating for Disney because they want to totally do a bunch of Marvel plans for the Disney World Resort, and Universal knows that property is super valuable, and they don't want to have to rebuild that whole area either. So they're just hanging on to that until Disney's like, here, take all this money, and so you rebuild this island as something else, and we can have this property.
But the frustrating thing is right now they're coming to a head, right? Yeah. And
it's like a stalemate.
And for someone, I like Marvel superheroes very much, and I've gone to that park 4 times. You know what? It's starting to get tired. I would like to see some updates, and that's why I'm saying it feels like this, because if they do this injunction, the fans will lose. Not necessarily Thomas, not necessarily Disney, but it's the fans losing. And that's what I'm afraid of here. That is going to be the collateral damage of this lawsuit. So I'm praying that the judge doesn't issue a preliminary injunction on this. I'm just praying and Skulls can proceed. And the first ongoing Predator comics in history can proceed.
Well, again, Skulls is not titled Predator. And the Predator, as we know it, that creature design was a work for hire with Stan Winston. So
I don't think they'll get away with that. I hear you, and maybe
I'm just telling you, Disney legal team knows what they're doing in terms of copyright IP protection.
Well, they feel this date is going to be invalidated, and that's what they're just suing right now. That's really interesting. They're not suing that the Thomas Brothers does not deserve the copyright of Predator or is owed it. Right now, they're just suing that the date is incorrect, the date of April 2021, and it should either be 2022 or 2023.
But they could be starting with that, and then depending on how a judge rules, they could change their case.
Right. So we'll have to see how that happens. And be honest with you, I hope the date is wrong. And I love the Thomas Brothers, but I hope that date is wrong because we're so excited for this new era, and I think all 3 of us are excited with the Skulls movie. I know some people railed against it, but we're all very the anticipation, we could just taste it for this film, and to see it stopped. And I really love the art team and the writer on the new Marvel comic, and I just don't want to see any of this go. And
do you think the comic delay had anything to do with this, or that was solely the distribution thing?
Personally, I believe it's the distribution thing, because what makes them believe it's going to be resolved? They had it resolved in November. They had informed retailers that this would be Predator would be available in November. Now, the new deal, they used to distribute exclusively through Diamond Distributors, and now they're distributing through Penguin starting October. And apparently the Predator variant covers that are going to appear on other characters titles are going to come out in October, and then the Predator #1 launch will be in November. Now, apparently, with this new Penguin distribution deal, Marvel is going to be making a lot more money than their previous exclusive deal with Diamond. So it really seems like it's timed with that, because otherwise, why wouldn't they just delay Skulls until November as well? If November is this month where they think everything is going to be resolved, it just doesn't make sense. So I just think that that still is a Penguin issue. And that is just all about, getting as much bang for the buck as they can.
Especially if they see the same level of success that they have with Alien 1. Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. Yeah.
Second printing, I think.
Yeah, right away. I think that was announced, 3 days in. And that was exciting news. And Alien was a big hit for them, We'll see how much, of that readership and that sales maintains as month, because I know a lot of purchases are fans that are buying like 10, 11, 12, 13 variant covers, and some are just collectors that don't even like Alien, but like, oh, you get a #1 and then you could sell it in 5 years for maybe 10 times its value. Especially if it's near mint condition. So you have some of that, but it was a great success. So I think they kind of wet their chops on that and said, okay, yeah, let's launch this through Penguin. It'll be their premier, Penguin title. So I just don't want to see it go.
Yeah, but we're at the point where it's all just fears at the minute. We don't really know where it's going yet. But
things work slowly in the legal system too. So we'll have to see. We'll know we're screwed if there's no April update for Hunting Grounds. That's for sure.
Well, the injunction won't be slow. Usually, if they do a preliminary injunction, that comes first, and then that injunction takes place. Everything is stopped until the case is actually resolved, and there's a ruling, and that could be years, as Adam said. So, but what I'm really concerned about is, I imagine, look, if Alphonic already put in the work of this latest Predator Hunting Grounds update, they're going to release it. But what's going to motivate them to do another big release if there's an injunction over their head that a hammer that could drop at any time? Why would they actually work on something beyond this if it could stop dead in its tracks and they can never make any money off of it?
Same thing goes for fans buying whatever DLC comes with this big update, if there is any, or fans just buying the game in general. What's the point if it's going to be dead and unsupported in so long because of this battle? Yeah. So again, it's lose-lose. It's lose for the creators working on the current stuff. It's lose for the fans that it's aimed at, Yeah.
You got to imagine with Alphonic, they're once bitten, twice shy. And
I can imagine some tables were flipped when that article went.
Yeah.
Because I would have, if I were working for them, I'd have lobbed a monitor at the wall when that came out. Not saying I have anger issues.
But I do think that Friday the 13th is the worst case scenario. It's not the most likely scenario we're going to see with this. That's just my intuition about the thing, but we don't know what's going to happen, and only time will tell.
We'll find out, hopefully soon enough, that it's all been dealt with. It's all been dealt with, and everything's still go, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Indeed. Right, well, what's everybody out there feeling about this situation? You're bummed as much as we are. Any of you with legal expertise that you would like to provide some insight with, we'd also love to hear from you as well. But anyway, thank you everybody for watching. This has been Corporal Hicks,
Ridgetop,
and Voodoo Magic.
Get into the chopper.